And welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. Let me take down this wrong banner because Russian, I missed out on everything. But today, our good, the beard of knowledge, wisdom. We got to add a third one because good things come in threes. But David Castillo is leading us today, so as he
knowledge, wisdom, and power, baby.
That's wisdom juice he's sipping. He should brand that and sell it so we can all get nice houses in the Maldives or something. But other than that,
the juice.
Yeah. All you, David. How you doing, man?
All right. Welcome, everybody. Good to see both of you. I think Jubilee's going to be running a little bit late, but she'll be here.
She popped in. She'll pop back in. She was driving. Yeah. She should be settled soon.
Great. We've got a very timely topic, breaking news, which we'll get into in a second. But let's be humans first. Let's connect on a human level. It's time, class. to check in on our feelings. We're doing a feelings check-in. So no, we're not doing a feelings check-in. You can if you want. Omar, how are you? How are things in Texas?
Stressed out, man. Stressed out. Doctor says I need a bacchiotomy, and Dr. Charles Cole says I need further elaboration on my dictionary skills, as my language may or may not be too profane to the masses. And I feel you on that one, because I got to tell you, not all of our audience may appreciate the extent of my vernacular as learned by Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy and Chris Rock. No, man, I am stressed. I got a lot of stuff going on. We're sending an appeal for our scores to the state. That is a very stressful situation, simply because we have a lot of emerging bilingual students that weren't coded correctly. And had they been coded correctly, our scores would have been radically different. In the meantime, I'm still working immensely on getting everything stabilized with our new school. There are things that I'm doing in Colorado. I mean, my God, I am in a very stressful state. This brother needs a drink. So that's my state of feelings today. Who else out there needs a drink right now? This guy does right here. Doc, how are you feeling?
I gotta defend myself. See, I curse a lot as well. So curse, dude, you gotta do. I'm just saying, you use it naturally, brother. Have it be a special gift.
It is natural. It's hard to the extent that I use it is in fact natural, which I believe is unnatural for everybody
else. There are some places where I was trying to shop certain things, and it's a lot of kids just were not shoppable.
User friendly is what we found.
But it's I want you to, if you feel it. I'm a curse as well, but I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm ready for today's show. I launched another show called Color Commentary. It kind of gets back to my audio only roots, my radio history roots, radio show. And the first episode is out now. It is talking about the Uncle Nearest situation. And I'm writing the second one right now, where what does Chance the Rapper, Marcus Garvey, and the FBA diaspora wars all have in common. It's just a place for me to be a nerd and go into some places, and it's audio only. Cool. But I'll share those. But I'm happy that you're here, David. If you want to know about that, it's called Color Commentary with Dr. Charles Cole. But I'm good, Dave. How you doing, man?
I am good. Speaking of, you made a reference to rap music, and Omar made a reference to foul language. I am volunteering tomorrow for our underfunded band program at my son's high school. They need to close like $15,000 or $20,000 gap every year, just to keep the lights on. So they've got a partnership with a local amphitheater. It's a huge amphitheater, and parents sign up, and we go and we pour beer for couple of hours, and the school gets a check for our volunteer time. And so tomorrow I'm volunteering, and the concert, the main act is Lil Wayne. Never seen Lil Wayne.
What?
Yeah, man.
Wow.
What kind of money y'all got?
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't even know he's doing this like massive national tour. to celebrate 30 years, of his body of work. So I've never seen him, and I'm looking forward to. I mean, we're working, but obviously, this amphitheater has incredible sound system, so we'll be able to hear everything. Yeah, I'll report back.
Well, that's dope.
Yeah, man.
That's
I've never
super
seen
dope.
Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne came around, like Lil Wayne to so many people is like what Rakim or Nas was to me. By the time Lil Wayne came around, I had already I stayed frozen in the golden era of hip hop. I didn't progress, or maybe I did progress. Maybe by not going forward is actually going forward. I don't know, but that's what's happening tomorrow.
Okay, well, that's what's up. That sounds super dope. Okay,
Yeah,
Well, go ahead then.
is it Tiga or Tyga? How do you say the name?
Tyga.
Tyga. All right.
He bringing Tyga?
Yeah, opening. So
Okay. No, they were still friends. Okay, cool. Hey, that's
Yeah.
what's up.
so I'll be
I'm
looking
with
out. Wasn't Tyga wrapped
He
up?
was a part of
or the
Young Money.
Kardashians, right?
Well, he was a part
Or
of
the
Young Money
Kardashians?
too. He signed to Wayne for a bit. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
Isn't he from Oakland?
No, he is
I don't
not.
think so.
Where are you from?
Nah, if he was from
LA.
LA?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on down here. And let's get into it.
Yeah.
So we just got a report which we are going to report out on and discuss. We've talked about it on the show a couple of times when these reports have come out, and it's a national test called the National Assessment for Educational Progress, the NAEP. We just got the results back from, I think, last year, and so we're looking at last year's data, and it's pretty wild. So again, this is not a test that all students take. I think schools are like handpicked, so it's kind of a random sampling. Have you all ever taken the NAEP at EPLA, Omar?
I'm trying to think if we have, and I don't think so. We did map testing that wound up getting reported to NAEP, which is not a bad thing, but I don't think we were actually ever took that assessment itself.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's not every. It's like different school
Yeah,
districts.
it's select schools. Yeah.
LEAs. Yeah. So we let's look at some of the top level data. The biggest finding is showing that students that are in the 12th grade, I think as of last year, so these students are now off in the world, performed at the lowest levels in both reading and math than at any other point in decades. I think since this assessment has been around for, right? So I think it's only been around since oh my gosh, when did it start? In the 90s or maybe before that? And so, it's a good like 30-year window. And students that took the test last year as 12th graders performed the worst in both math and reading than any other time. Only 1 in 5 seniors were proficient in math and a third in reading. So 2 out of 3. Going down. So, that's what's happening. And these are students that, let's think about this in context. Maybe you can help with this, Omar. So students that were in high school last year that were seniors, when the schools got shut down, they were in middle school, correct? Is that right?
2020. So it's about a 4 to 5 year. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
7th, 8th grade.
So so these are students that probably attended elementary uninterrupted, and then at some point in middle school, depending on where you're at in the country.
About right.
I mean, in California, it's like 2.5 years. In certain areas, it was like maybe 1. So there's that. Obviously, when we look at the data, I just shared like all students, but if you look at Black, Brown students, low income, special education, we see that the gaps, the academic achievement gaps continue to widen. So students are like performing further apart than they were, which is a problem. a couple of I mean, call them highlights. I think you can, sort of a mixed bag. Is charter school performance didn't necessarily drop; it more or less stayed stable. So
so charters
yep.
like this, okay.
There you go. So in that group, in the group of charters that did participate in this assessment, performance more or less stayed the same. So I guess that's a win for those kids. They didn't perform worse. And then in private schools, so this is interesting. This assessment is actually given to private school students too.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found is that the gaps between the lowest performers and the highest performers, they didn't necessarily play out like that in private schools. But that could be because, private schools you have to opt into. It's not necessarily like a public school population, but more to come on that. And so
not speculate, but their number. I mean, I know we can think about it. But did they go up? They went down. I know the answer, but for the audience out there, how did that?
They scored overall higher.
Okay, so
and
they did this.
The racial achievement gaps was smaller in private schools compared to public schools.
Okay, so yeah. All right. So if you're listening, hey, their scores went higher. And the disparity that David's talking about is usually in traditional settings. It's like white kids and Asian kids, and then it'll be black kids. Or be like there'll be an average, but then when you disaggregate for numbers, as somebody who studies black kids a lot, we tend to be lower on that. In this setting, it seems like the disparity was not as drastic as it normally is in some other settings. Okay, good information.
And then, we can get into the why, but I think we'll kind of stop right there. I've got some more stuff to bring in.
What happened in traditional? You did charter, private. I didn't think we did. What was traditional?
Traditional saw the most decline.
Okay, and traditional. So traditional did this. Got it.
Yep. And in traditional, you saw the widest gaps.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what it is. It's like it feels like it's more of a continuation of what we saw coming out of the pandemic. And so
interesting storm.
I think the question I have for you now is around, let's just jump into like accountability. And maybe even before accountability, like, do we feel like these tests are measuring the right things? Because there are so many other things that schools are doing to impact students in positive ways. But when you take a laser focus on math and reading on these assessments, we're clearly seeing either flatlining or backtracking. So I don't know. Coming out of like No Child Left Behind, we had a federal government that was very hands-on around accountability, and now they're like literally like taking a step back. They want to dismantle the federal Department of Education, leave it up to the states. We talked about Oklahoma wanting to like get rid of standardized testing. So maybe before we talk about the results, like, what are your thoughts on like accountability? Are these the right assessments to measure the right things? What are your ideas there?
I'll defer to Omar. You have right of refusal. If you want to go first or defer, brother.
You go first, and then I'll jump in, man.
Sounds good. I think so. One, before I start to give my other thoughts and dive deeper into it, the data is the data. So, and if this data has shown that there was significant Black growth and significant public school growth, traditional and charter, I would have been celebrating it. So I don't want to. Because what I might have been rooting for, and also congratulations to those private schools. Again, I don't do this thing where I demonize private schools, like and they got Black kids and brown kids and poor kids in those schools as well. So wherever we are, I want to make sure that we're doing well. So kudos there. I also
don't demonize private schools.
I don't think you do at all. I
don't demonize, but I am critical of these state-run systems where they're giving money over to parents to attend private schools that have zero accountability.
Yeah, I was getting there. I'm getting there.
Sorry.
So what I'm qualifying is I'm giving a reaction to the numbers and what my reactions would have been if certain groups that I was rooting for had rose. I would have been like, great, right? So I want to say that. I think, and I'm giving props where there was actual growth, whether those are privileged people, rich people, whatever. I want to see people learn it. Now, to answer the other question, I think that there's significant work that needs to be done. I don't think this is always the tell-all be-all, but these numbers do matter. And I know there are people that there's a school of thought where they don't. But in a world where we don't have, we're not properly measuring the product of education and who has been hurting for however long, the instinct can't, for me, automatically go to defending those numbers or this is missing or that's missing. It is no, because all four of us know, and most of the people watching, is that there's a sector of America that is not getting quality education. Where I do caution, though, is that this is a perfect storm for this current administration to try to dogpile and say, see, this public system doesn't work. It's this private system. Let's do this voucher thing. And I think that voucher system, once that gets implemented in the private schools that would then enter the conversation, I don't think it's going to be an apples to apples conversation. And I think that's where David was going. There's a lot of games and tricks that will be played once federal dollars become available for people to have that. Now, I'm a choice advocate. I believe in parent choice, in school choice in a lot of different ways. And so, I think there's some nuance to this conversation, but that's my overall space. My overall place is congrats to those guys. There's work to be done, and there's some context filling in that we need to do. But the headline is that education for a large and vast population in this country that looks like me and sounds like me and smells like me, it sucks. And we keep making excuses for cold product, and we need to start having some different conversations. I didn't mean to take as long, David, but I wanted to make sure I was making the point that I was trying to get to. My bad.
Hey, man. It's our show, baby. We do what we want.
It's all good. I mean, he set up a good question, and we're going to get through all his questions today. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. We're going to get it through, David. I promise.
I like it, man.
Let's do that. Welcome, Jubilee.
Greetings, Earthlings. I am here. How are you? Everybody checked in?
Yeah, we checked in.
Awesomeness. Awesome.
Yeah, we celebrated you immensely.
Thank you. I believe you, Omar. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Let's get into it. I'm tired and happy today. I got some good news this morning, and I'm on 4 hours of sleep.
Oof.
And I am grateful, and I'm happy, and let's do it.
Okay.
All right.
We all get to share any good news, or no? That wasn't for public consumption. That's okay. Don't tell your business if you don't need to. It's cool.
When we get offline,
you just set that up, so you left us hanging. That was self-inflicted, but it's okay. We're just happy for you.
Just smile with me. You know what's wrong with our culture? Everybody always feels like they gotta know. You know what I mean? If I tell you I'm happy, be happy. You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
He just wants to hate. He wants to hate.
I want to produce a show. Look, I came in, so I had to produce Omar earlier, and then I'm producing Jube. It's like you gave the crowd a teaser. Now the crowd is like,
you just gonna have to be teased.
We want the good news.
You're just gonna have be teased.
You know what? I don't like being producer. I'm gonna make David gonna be producer moving forward.
Let's talk about this purple microphone. This purple, that's my favorite color, and it's bringing me a lot of joy. Okay. It's just added to my joy. So can I have one? I'm not gonna know how to.
It's gone. It's gone.
It's gone now.
That's a good ass purple mic. Man, I would have been much better had that purple mic kind of came in like the boom mic in Dolomite and just started kind of scratching your head and stuff. That'd have been dope, man. That's what you can expect here on the South Star Classroom. Hit that boom mic, baby. Look at that. That is professional grade.
I'm
radio grade.
There you go.
That's radio grade, baby.
One of those.
I love that. Yay. Okay.
Very professional.
All right. Yeah. I mean, so, I will kind of come back in, David, and steer us back in the direction of the show. I think to summarize quickly, I'm happy for private school students I'm always a bit skeptical about score lines because the greatest indicator for student success is oftentimes the income of the parents. Income of the parents is higher. That has a definitive demonstration of higher score sets because we've talked about it endlessly on this show, innumerable reasons. So I'm happy for the private school kids, but we cannot create the major statistical problem of causation and correlation, meaning correlation, private school kids do better, does not equal causation. The reason they're doing better is because they're going to a private school. We do not want to do that conundrum. That is a statistical fallacy that we talked about a lot on this show. So for me, I'm really looking at, selfishly, this comparison between charter schools and traditional public schools. The fact that a public charter school stabilized scores on the whole and traditional schools faltered immensely was really where I was honing in where these scores were at, because I feel like a lot of traditional public charter schools deal with very disadvantaged low-income students. We certainly do the most disadvantaged low-income students this community has. And the stabilization component during COVID, it was just the entrepreneurship of charter schools during that time was prevalent. We were scrambling to get them internet. We were scrambling to get them food. We had very organized ways of trying to handle the academics. And even still, these students suffered extraordinary tragedy, parents and grandparents dying as a result of the situation. People locked into one house. A lot of people locked into one house. Food shortages. There's just a ton of trauma. So I think seeing how charter schools could navigate that should be a testament and a question of, well, what were they doing that the traditional schools were not? And what were the best practices that we could garner? It's not to say that we don't ask the private schools, but I think Doc is making a very good inference here, is that you're going to have a lot of people take a look at this evidence and be like, see, the private schools are doing well. And I'm like, don't, I know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Don't be a liar. Correlation does not equal causation. And let's get to the bottom what actually worked. Jube, you up, queen.
What was the question?
Yeah, we were already in the question.
Let me add something here, because I'm thinking we'll get to the question, but I totally understand the historical, it's not even historical significance, like the impact that this COVID had, right? That's very real. But these outcomes on this one assessment pre-COVID were not that much better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm seeing now, it's very fascinating to be a parent whose child attends a large comprehensive high school in a large comprehensive district, right? Our district is only high schools. So we have this like big, we have a high school district that encompasses all these other districts. And all they do is run high schools, which is great because your focus is like on, that part of the education, those grades. But, and we had back to school night last week. And I mean, what I'm seeing is, and this is just my experience, I'm seeing young teachers that they just aren't like well trained and well prepared, to work in schools, and they're definitely not thinking about outcomes. I mean, they're thinking about like classroom culture, which is important. They're not even really aligned on like grading practices, which is a huge issue for me. It should be for everybody. And they're focused on getting through the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if the labor market has changed so much, or if large school systems and smaller ones have just taken their finger off the pulse of like academics and outcomes. And now this is where we kind of find ourselves, right? Because I know that when any school I've ever run, we weren't not only focused on outcomes, but we were definitely focused on outcomes, and we figured out ways to like get things done and move the needle for kids. I don't even know if you can say move the needle anymore, right? And it just feels like, you know, these large school systems are facing a couple of things. Now we know that there's not a whole lot of evidence that a lot of learning is happening in these school systems, and you have declining enrollment, right? Which we're not going to like go down that rabbit hole, but I'm just wondering, like, who's going to sound the alarm bell here in the situation? You know, we talked about at the top, Jubilee, and I'll leave it, and then I'll hand it off to you. You know, the big takeaways from this latest NAEP data was that 12th graders are doing worse across the board in all subjects, math and reading, than they've ever done on this assessment. Like that, you know, and 1 in 5 math seniors are proficient in math, a third in reading. That's not disaggregated. That's all of them. You know what happens when we start to tear it apart. Right. Charter schools were pretty much like flat or stable. And of the private schools that were included in this data set, you actually saw higher achievement, and you saw a more narrow achievement gap. So that's what we saw. So maybe you can start with like just what are your reflections on that? Have you seen this? Have you this just came out like yesterday? So
yeah, no, I didn't get a chance to read it, but it sounds very, very familiar. And to your question, who's going to ring the alarm? It's the parents. Like, I don't actually think it's only one, you know, set of stakeholders, right? I think that we're all responsible for it. But when I look at these recurring trends, it's just like, it's the parents. It's us understanding what we have the power to demand. Because at this point, we're talking about simple things, right? We've always been talking about simple things: quality instruction and safe communities for kids to go to school. It's very simple, like, and I think when I'm listening to the data, private versus charter versus public, those were the 3 comparisons. Is that the 3 comparisons? Private, charter, traditional, public?
Yeah, that's what we talked about. Yep.
Gotcha. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Those 2 things I talked about will be consistent no matter what kind of school you go to, right? Those are the needs per se, right? Whether you go to private school, whether you go to charter school, traditional, public, you need a safe learning environment and teachers who can teach, right? And I think what ends up becoming a distraction, right, are the other pieces that some of the entities have that others don't. For example, charter schools a lot of times don't have unions. You have high level of accountability, high level of autonomy. Just get the people in here, get the people teaching, keep the babies safe, cultivate a learning environment where kids want to come and parents feel comfortable sending their kids. We're good to go. Get the curriculum, do what you got to do. Private school, kind of same, but it's even more difficult to get in those places because you got to have the dollars to be able to get in there, or some kind of scholarship that's gonna pay your way, right? But you also, because you don't necessarily you have some masters, but you don't have the master of like the typical school district clawing down your back to tell you what you can and cannot do, right? So then there's private, and then traditional public, you've got all sorts of barriers, right? You've got all sorts of demographics, all sorts of, socioeconomic statuses. You've got unions, you've got disgruntled employees and teachers that are like, I get paid whether or not you learn. They're still there. Yeah. And, oh, Miss Gracie's still there. Yep, she's still there. She started teaching in 1947. Nobody liked her then. Nobody likes her now. She's still there. She didn't retire yet? No, she didn't retire yet. She still got 2 more.
We all know Miss Gracie.
Children out. And she is at your local school that is down the block from your house, right? So I just think, I don't want to stumble over the words that Omar said, right? The quote, causation, correlation. But I just think they have different battles to fight because of the nuances of their environments. But the truth still remains that you just need a safe environment and teachers that teach. And I think that us as parents like have to be the ones that are outraged and demanding these things from the school system, and also understanding, like what I tell my sons, that all education does not happen in the schoolhouse. And if we look at these assessment results, right, a lot of times that's a part of the quote unquote achievement gap, knowledge gap, right? It's experiential, right? And it's the fact that the 4-year-old that technically goes to the traditional school that, you know, lives in the hood or lives down a block from the school, and the 4-year-old or 5-year-old that goes to a private school may have been exposed to different experiences, right, that are activating schema, that are building prior knowledge, right, and are readily available for him or her to call upon, right, that the student or the child that lives in another environment where they're having limited experiences will not be able to do the same thing, right? So I think it's more than just reading, writing, arithmetic that strengthens or raises proficiency levels, right? So that's my thought.
Yep. And I think a couple of things that I'm thinking about, I mean, some of them are like they would seem to be very common sense on the surface. When you talk about some of the barriers that are in place in the larger like bureaucratic systems, you know, for charter operators, the ability to like have a longer school day, right? Yep. You know, the ability to have, instead of 180 days of instruction, you have 185, whatever. You know, all those things kind of add up.
Staff, if they're not unionized in different ways, you can
hire
and fire much quicker, and you don't have the same. Catholic schools have a lot of nuns teaching that did not go to, to ed school, right? Like, is you can hire who you want in those other schools versus some of these traditional schools, which is like, if I as a doctor wanted to just kind of do a semester long like residency at a traditional public, it's not impossible, but it's a lot to go through versus if it was private or charter and they wanted to do something like that.
Yeah. To your point, Charles, that is why I chose to be the principal of a charter school, honestly. And people always would ask me like, oh man, like, why don't you do like traditional public? I'm like, no, thank you. I need the autonomy. Why? Because when teachers, showed up in my school and they were not, providing quality instruction, you're going to get a couple write-ups and all that, but baby, you get in a letter of non-renewal. And guess what? Courtesy would be to try to wait as long as possible so that I don't disrupt the school year. But the moment I find out that you are not able to provide the high quality education that my scholars need and deserve, you can get the deuces, right? I think that is why I chose to become the principal of a charter school, so that I could always be aligned with making sure that my kids were getting what they needed and that no adult entity or what have you was going to get in the way of that. They need more books in the classroom. They need more genres. They need more topics. They need more field trips. They need more exposure. Whatever it is, it's within my power to make sure that it happens.
Yep. You're gonna. I mean, you ask that students show up to your school at a certain time and that they stay until a certain time. Like, it's your responsibility to make sure that that time is well spent, right? Every classroom, every minute. I got to thinking about the situation with these, like thinking about accountability and the big school systems that, seem to be not interested in, raising student achievement. If you have a student in any kind of school system, right? You're in middle school, you're in high school, they've even in elementary. I mean, they have students are held accountable, right, for behavior, for and they're held accountable for turning work in, classwork, homework. They take tests and quizzes. A lot of that sometimes is a very like mysterious box. We don't really know what the algorithms are in the background that create grades, but students turn in work all the time that doesn't get graded. And vice versa. And so, learning how to negotiate, learning how to help your student, your children navigate like grading systems is unfortunately part of like what parents have to do. It's part of what I do every day. And sometimes, we end up my son ends up on the losing end of that, and he's held accountable for it. He gets a D instead of a C, or a C instead of a B, right? Because of some assignment, some miscommunication, teacher didn't do what they needed to do, but there's still accountability there. None of that even means that our students are learning, right? So we're holding students accountable for, sometimes for these academic things, for, behavior, even though behavior sometimes it's like misinterpreted, right? Whatever, but you still violated this ed code. You're suspended for a day, right? Okay. But you're running a whole school system where kids are not learning, right? So like there's accountability for individual kids and subgroups of kids, but where is the accountability for these big systems that, are the recipient of billions of dollars of like taxpayer money?
Yeah.
There's none.
No. And it's a mindset thing too, David, I think, because the mindset will influence whether or not you think this is sacred work, whether or not this is urgent work, and that's why I go back to what I said about parents being, part of the catalyst for change. When I think about myself and my own sons, right, my foot on people's necks has been the only, for real. Like, I told white teachers, don't call my son whatever. I think she called him annoying. A teacher called him an a-hole. I'm like, don't call him that. I say he's a black boy. He's a young black king. He's growing up. Don't call him that. Don't say that. Why is this grade? Why you failed my son? My son been reading since he was 3 years old. How could he be failing ELA in 10th grade? Why are you sending home 3rd grade assignments? Right? I have an advantage because I'm an educator, because I'm a leader, right? And I know all parents don't have that. But I used to always tell my families that would come to the different, back to school nights and all of that. You have power just by way of knowing that you should ask a question, that you should be curious, that you should be all up in your kids' book bag and in their teachers' classrooms and having conversations and asking for the syllabus and asking for the agenda and asking for the assignments and asking for the outcomes that students are expected to leave the course with, right? So I feel heavy about the parent piece on this. And I think to answer your question about the system and there being no accountability, I think the systems are designed to get the results they get, right? Like, we just going to keep on getting this money, like people could say what they want, but we're going to keep getting this money. We're going to continue to make excuses about why kids aren't learning. Oh, COVID been gone for 5 years. We still talking about COVID, but you talking about absenteeism, chronic absenteeism, but you ain't educating the kids that's up in this building right now. So we have 35% our students don't come to school. Yeah, but you got 65% in the building and none of your teachers got lesson plans. Mm-hmm. You don't even have an instructional vision. You don't even know how they performed on a state assessment. You don't even. So what are we talking about?
Yep. And so I mean, I do think there's definitely like so we're having a conversation about school systems, about this big like national academic assessment. 99% of teachers that are teaching right now they'll never read a headline about NAEP, and maybe that's okay, maybe that's not. But I surely hope that they are having a conversation about, other assessment tools that, they're using to measure student progress. I want to go to another level here, because this report is really coming at a perfect time for the Trump administration. Mm-hmm. It's trying to dismantle the federal Department of Education. They want to push, they want to go to like a states' rights thing on education. We talked about it, I think, last week, where Oklahoma is likely to, or if not already filed for a waiver from standardized testing. And so it seems like a perfect storm for the Trump administration to say, like, look, these schools aren't doing very well. Let's continue to go down this path of school choice, right? You know, and let's. I mean, you're probably. These results just came out, so I guarantee you in the next week or two, this is going to become a major talking point for the Trump administration. And you're already seeing it on social media. So, I mean, I guess the question here for you all is like, what do you think what should be the response or the reaction from like superintendents, state superintendents, you know, around this issue, knowing that there's like this threat right now? I mean, essentially of like losing students to, you know, private school programs and or charter school programs. You can probably bank on the idea that Trump is going to double down on this stuff now. And so, like, what do? Do you do nothing? Do you just like think it's going to pass, or like? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Oof. I mean, I think it's one thing to talk as a superintendent what I would do. It's another thing to assume what others would do. And then it's another thing to assume what state individuals would do. Largely, I think that state superintendents and commissioners, and I don't want to create a massive assertion about them all because I actually really like the commissioner of education here in Texas. But remember, they're very political fellows, right? This is marred in politics. They are oftentimes appointed by the governor of that state. Therefore, the governor's educational ideological perspectives usually are aligned with where that state is going. And oftentimes the politics of their actions don't necessarily correlate with student performance. I can tell you that Mike Morath here in Texas is all about student performance and is really trying to do what's right by kids and holding traditional schools, charter schools, highly accountable to all of the academic gains. You know, I think that superintendents of districts are political fellows too, very political. I feel like a lot of them are trying to either garner a different kind of political position or power. They oftentimes, like El Paso is a really interesting city. They'll come in here for like 3 years, show that they could work with like us Mexicans, and then barrel out to like Scottsdale, Arizona, or some affluent district, and just basically like golf all day. Meaning, do I think that they care about scores? No, I think they care about themselves for the most part. So I don't think you're going to see any alarms sounded by traditional school districts. I think they're just going to be like, we've been here for a long time. This is the ebb and flow of education. This too will pass. We know what we're doing. And it's like, not really. Like, if you did, you'd be scoring through the roof, just like a lot of these charter schools are scoring through the roof. I think charter school superintendents are looking at this and being like, holy crap. But I think if you're a charter school principal or teacher or superintendent, you're in that arena because you realize the extraordinary work it takes to actually, quote, move that needle. So you're already bought in to trying to change the academic results. You're already bought into the urgency of the work. You're already bought in to why kids need to have extraordinary amounts of attention, and teachers need to be trained in order to provide meaningful impact on their work. So I think for the most part, David, to answer your question, your district people will be like, nah, this is the wave that we always see. This too shall pass. I think states are going to align with whatever political affiliation their majority party is aligning to. That would be my prediction. And I think I think charter superintendents are going to be as urgent, if not more urgent, about what is it that we can do. I think what no one's asking, David, is what is the root cause? And I think therein lies my big difficulty behind this report, is that what is the root cause? The report is just saying this is what's happening. This is
Right.
the symptoms of this situation. But I don't think we've got a root cause of like, how has social media, COVID, the shift in professionalism in teaching, the shift out of teaching, major budgetary issues, all of these things compounded into what is happening with kids. And I don't think that there's anything out there that's saying, holy shit, like this is all of the reasons that this is causing it. And this is things that the traditional school system needs to do. Because I'll tell you what, the charter systems, for the most part, the high performing ones, don't give a shit. Give us what you have. We will adapt, we will shift, we will change, we will create new practices, and we will do what needs to be done to increase student performance and make sure that they're doing well holistically and, you know, literary wise on their literacy scores. But like, man, school districts are like, yeah, if it's not one program, it's another. And if it's not this, it's not that. We're just going to try to survive the day. It's a long-winded answer to, man, I don't think shit's going to happen.
So let's okay, so there's like you mentioned a lot of things like and I think you're right, but you know, school systems in 2025 can't you know, COVID's happened, we're still reeling. Social media is a thing. There are things that school systems and leaders can do to, you know, address that within the school day and sometimes out. So there's certain things that like you can't control for poverty, right? Safe neighborhoods, nutrition, you kind of can't. What are the things that school leaders and school systems can control, can impact? Like, what are those things that I mean? And let's just
have a
game
plan
of like, what would you suggest that they do?
So I appreciate that, because I was writing down my responses while they were going, and I was going to piggyback on what Omar said. And actually, Omar, I agree, and I'm a push. I actually think that people hide behind root causes. I think that they will say because of poverty in my area, because of these things and these factors, and that kind of lets people off the hook. We've known what root causes have been since I was a little kid. We know what these things are that are happening. We know what good teaching looks like. We know that having first-year teachers for kids in extreme poverty is not going to work, but we still don't do what we need to do to make that right. I would suggest this. I think if you're the person that's in that seat and you're making the hundreds of thousands of dollars that you make, and you have been bestowed, it's like firefighters. It's like a firefighter can't complain about heat in fires. You signed up to be a firefighter. So if you sign up to be a public instruction superintendent, this is the stuff that comes with it. You might fail, but what are the things? And I think there needs to be a triaged approach. What do I mean by that? We still got to try to solve these larger systemic things. That's never going to go away. But guess what? Poverty ain't going away tomorrow. Racial disparity is not going away tomorrow. We're never going to have a perfect board to kind of do this. In fact, some might argue that COVID was a perfect board this way. Some might argue that Hurricane Katrina was the perfect board to rethink things and redo things. So in that triaged impact, all right, here's my plan to attack the systemic things. But what about these kids on Monday morning? What about these kids that are here now? What standard am I holding my teachers to? What is the standard that I'm holding my principals to? What is the standard that I'm setting out there for my people? Do people understand and know? Because we'd be surprised at what human beings can get used to if you just do it long enough. We've gotten used to just saying 3 out of 10 kids can read. Like we've gotten used to that. And if you went to any other like formalized country, that's a first world country, and they had a thriving education system, and then you said, we're going to make sure only 3 out of 10 of your people can read, that is an act of war. Our urgency is not matching the moment, and it never has. And you can shuttle through these positions. You could be superintendent for 3 years, 2 years, and then you can ride off into the sunset of like a nice, parachute and a whole bunch. And I'm not mad at that. I actually think that they should be able to, the way you can in many careers that's high level like that. But David, I think that we have to like really start to challenge this notion. What's going to be different than your tenure? And I don't think it behooves you to make a whole bunch of plans. What are your 3 goals? What are the 3 things that as superintendent that you control that will absolutely be different? Now, other problems may arise. People may say you're ignoring these things, but somebody has to have the balls to kind of to go in there and focus on that stuff.
So show me a superintendent's contract that has actual like stated academic goals incorporated into them. Like, this is part of your 3-year contract. Here's where we expect you to be in 3 years, right? Those things just don't exist. They don't exist. It's like,
well,
and I think,
I will say, careful with that. And I want to interject really quickly because I believe in what you're saying, because I'll be the first to say that my contract has direct stipulations: teacher retention, student retention, student recruitment.
Yes.
Our kids coming to the school because we're doing well, our kids staying in the school because we're doing well, and our teachers staying in the school because we're doing well. Because I've often found that if you tie academic data into a contract, people cheat. And that's what we found in Georgia. That's what we found in Texas. So I think that we found workarounds. But I'm with you, David, because like I put my money where my mouth is, and my contract is justified on those things, because that's where I think you can do the academic component without having that implicit, what would I call it? Like impetus to cheat, which is a lot of what people did. But yes, I'm with you. Where are those metrics in these contracts to say, put your money where your mouth is, man?
Right. And Omar, I think, Jubilee touched on a little bit of what you're saying now, right? What system, you also work in a different system. You work in a system that's utilizing, and asking different questions. And again, I'm sure there's some traditional, I don't know, I haven't read all the contracts. I'm sure we can find a traditional public contract that also has these stipulations.
Yep.
But I think what David was saying is clear across the board though, right? Like in the vast, if we're looking at it, it doesn't really have those things. You know what it does have? If you fire me early, I'm leaving with 300. Like if you fire me early, I'm leaving with 400. And again, they should. That's what contracts are for.
Yeah.
But you have to like also have these things. I just, because I get what you were saying, Omar, but I feel like I felt what David where he was trying to go with that. And David,
I should have qualified it by saying public school district.
Traditional.
Any role I ever had, and sometimes, this is what you have to do, and I'm sure, Omar, this is part of what you had to do. Like you said it before, it's interesting. There's this mindset of like, Omar, you're not an administrator, you're a leader. The principals and the directors in my son's district, they're not leaders, they're administrators. It's like a totally different, like, let's keep this thing going. We're going to, administer this program. We've been doing this for 20 or 30 years. We still get the same crappy results. And we're definitely not inspiring our staff. Right. That's like, if you work in the charter sector for long enough, that's the actual job. Right. And to inspire students. Right. Doesn't mean showing up to the pep rally every Friday. I guess it's just, maybe it's an apples to not an apples to apples comparison when I think about it. But I'm with you. Like, I would always put, even if my board was not asking for it, like, we would generate academic goals, not just academic goals, but also like, it has to be tied to like school culture, suspension, attendance, teacher retention. You're right. All of those things go together. And put it out to the public, put it out in your newsletter, put it out to your board and say, here's what we're working on. Right. If they're not asking for it, you can put it out there and say, this is what we're working towards. Right. It's accountability. And right now, I've talked about this before, like my formative years of running a school was right in the middle of No Child Left Behind. So that's like my mindset around this stuff. And, I'm thinking like, it's interesting. Trump can be a very, when it's politically expedient for him, he can say, let's push it off to the states, let them decide. And other times he can say, like, I'm going to make a decision and we're going to go with this from the White House, right? We're going to bypass the Supreme Court and we're going to bypass Congress. You know, so like, I mean, what would a new No Child Left Behind look like, you know? Or do they just like abandon all of it and say like, we're going to go for this like school choice thing?
Well, No Child Left Behind did itself no favors with, right, its marketing, right? Like, so there's very few people that are publicly saying, oh, this is what I'm grateful for No Child Left Behind from, outside of you and me kind of honoring it, David, while also looking at a lot of the shortcomings. I don't know if I've heard anybody other like left person or person that's not super conservative say anything positive about No Child Left Behind, which is interesting because a lot of things that are set up, Trump has gotten rid of, the disaggregation, looking into specific groups, making sure you're funding those things where there's disparity, actually equity, right? So I think the other thing, I didn't want to be remiss, there might be, you know, when you're in a mid to large traditional public district, I don't think everybody understands the role that a superintendent has, right? It's a very, very political role. Not it's a part of your job is academics, and some it's like you might want to get a good chief academic officer, but like a lot of it is who gets contracts, who like people don't understand that usually school districts in a mid and up are a top 3 job provider of that city too, right? Like it's a very, very political thing. I didn't want to step on your answer at all, David. I just wanted to, like, you know.
No, I get it. I get it.
When you run a charter network,
part
it's
of the
a little
problem.
bit different. The level of money you're playing with and the type of, you know, you still got that power. Or like, or the nuances, like when you go to a private school and you try to say principal, and there's some charter schools that'll be like, no, I mean, I'm sorry, private schools, and that person be like, no, headmaster. I'm the headmaster, right? Like there's a different level of prestige in some of these things too. So, you know, I just wanted to give it back some apples to apples because I'm assuming that many people in our audience don't know these different nuances of like Omar can get along with a traditional, you know, superintendent who could get along with a headmaster of a private school, and they have a similar job in spirit, but in, you know, in practice, it's some different things they're responsible for at times.
Yep.
I mean,
all right, we are getting. Go ahead, Julie.
When a school system paying your salary, that's off the back of children,
right?
So therefore, let's keep the main people, and that's the kids. Like I don't actually care what the hell, superintendent, headmaster, CEO, Kermit the Frog, Snuffleupagus, who whatever your title is, you are the leader of a school system, of a school. You need to keep the main people, and that is the kids. And I think, like, yeah, we scream this and we shout this from the rooftops, but I really do think, I don't think the superintendent role is the sole, you know, catalyst for improvement and all that stuff. But I do think it's a main role because you're the visionary, right? And I'm actually seeing this playing out right in front of my eyes in my district, right? Because we just transitioned to a new superintendent, of like how a vision can galvanize people, how a vision can remind people, or along with a plan. You got to have a plan, right? But it starts with the vision, and the vision is a telltale sign of what you actually believe, right? Whether or not you have the appropriate mindset to be leading, whether or not you this is urgent, sacred work, and we don't have time. Johnny gets to take one shot at 3rd grade, and if he takes 2, and he came to school every day, I'm going to say it has to do with the educator that was in that room every day, right? If all his other conditions were healthy, right? So I just think, I think the superintendent has a really critical role, even if he or she is not, you know, well studied or an expert in all of the academic things and all of the social emotional things. Like, you have to at least have a strong foundation and bring people in your cabinet, right, who are heading up the other things that are strong in those areas, you know, as well. And yes, to Charles's point, yeah, it is very political. You got to do all the press releases and you got to negotiate and all the but all of our salaries are paid by Johnny, Mookie, Sarah, Katisha. that is how we are able to go take our kids hiking and to the damn Busch Gardens and to Tahiti and wherever else we go. So I don't, the fact that the children could take a back seat because, we got to figure out a contract, or we got to negotiate this or that, that is complete bullshit.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
All right. We are up on time. So I'm going to do a quick closing thought, and then I'll open the floor to you all. So I think what this topic has gotten me thinking, so we've gone more down like this political kind of road, and I think it makes sense. Thinking about the political pressures to like get reelected, to hand out the goods, right? If you are in that position, it's making me think about Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix, at a 2014 California Charter Schools Association, where he got lambasted for this, but I think he was right. He says, we're not going to get to the place where we have sustained quality school improvement with elected school boards. So he called for the death of the elected school board. And we have some places where they have elected superintendents. And I think when you mix those things together, you lose a sense of purpose, of intentionality. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where my head's gone. Because then you're less concerned about like outcomes for kids, unless people are paying attention to outcomes for kids, and they're not. So then your secondary concern is like getting reelected, right? And that means handing out the spoils. So who would like to go next?
I'll go. I mean, I agree with what you just said, right? The politics thing, every single time we mix or allow politics to inform what we do in education, we end up losing. And I know there might be some like positive residue from some initiative that was put in place at some point, but they're far and few between, right? And it's like those things on us, they might actually like highlight some of the changes that we need to some degree. But then because we rely on the politics to inform what we do in education, the next go round when it switches and whoever's in the driver's seat changes, so does the policy, so does the things that we already finally got on the page and said, we actually need this. Yeah. We need to give kids breakfast so they can focus in class. And then the next people come, breakfast, they should eat at home. So what if they're in poverty? Like what? So then we just can't get our footing, right? Because of who's in the driver's seat. May I submit that perhaps the person in the driver's seat should be the one that has the vision, the training, right? The understanding of how to keep the main people, right? And how to galvanize people around that, right? To ensure that that is our focus. And no matter who else comes along, those are the only people that are allowed to be in the driver's seat. Final thought.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree. It always comes back to the end users. For me, it comes back to the students, the parents, that community. As Sharif likes to say, schools don't have community, communities have schools. And I think that they're the ones that have to ultimately hold those schools accountable. And I worked with a superintendent in a traditional district that I really respected and really liked and had a very, very strong vision. And like I said, I've said on the show before, when we introduced a new principal, these group of moms came up after our little network thing and was like, hey, I hear you, and we don't mean any disrespect, but we hire and fire our principals in the sense of, if we don't like this person that you picked, they're going to be gone. And we thanked her. We thanked them. I think that has to be what's happening. And as Jubilee said, if the thing is, if you're making this money off the backs of kids and taxes and things like that, you have to be bestowed on something. But I'm Black. We represent 13% of a population. And in many of these districts, we are 5%, 4%. So a superintendent could be doing great with 90%, 85% of those young people, and they'll be fine. But there's always those people on the fringes that don't bubble up to the top. And you need some agency. You need to have a standard. You need to not feel guilty about where your own academic levels are and make sure your kids are getting what they need. And you also need to add on resources on top of whatever that school and or that district is doing. It's never going to be enough. And you got to remember, you're the only one that got to live. If you're that child or that parent, you're the only one that got to live with what happens to that child as that parent or that person. And so you can't sit it out. You got to ask questions. You got to know what's happening and Be annoying if you need to be, but ask your people, what's our North Star? What's our standard? Where's my kid at? What is the growth goals? What does this mean? What can I do in addition to what's actually happening here? What are some other resources? A more informed user base does lift boats in different ways. So that's my contribution. I wish we had about 2 or 3 more hours because there's so many nuanced ways to go. I'm not trying to speak so sweepingly, and I don't think any of us are. It's just short on time and got to get to the point. But that's where my answers will lie with the people.
I think I'll be quick and somewhat contradictory to even something Bill Conrad just said. I agree that there's a ton of corruption and money is part of that corruption, but I'd actually jump in a different direction, thinking that we need way more money in the educational sector, because I have a hypothesis that if we were competing with the tech companies and the computer scientists and that industry for these professions, and we were able to get that kind of talent interested in coming into the education sector, in addition to all the incredible people that are involved in education currently, I think we'd have a much more expansive pool of people that we were working with that would make things much easier, as Jubilee said, to be like, you're not in this for kids. You're not in this for the right reasons. Like, beat it. Like, here, like ain't no $400,000 gift package for you. Like they just did in El Paso for someone who got fired for academic fraud. Oh, fucking El Paso, man. Ain't nothing like that for you. It is hey, we are tying this to how well students are actually doing. And are you an agent for change? Are you a coach? Are you coming into a school district and actually taking these things seriously? Because we're willing to pay you, your principals, and your teachers exceptionally well for this. But because of that, there are no excuses. And remove the politics entirely out of it. I hate the politics because the politics looks like this is local representation, but people are going for school board seats who don't give a shit about the schools, the budgets, don't know a thing about the budgets. Bro, I've met these cats. I have met these cats. They don't know a thing about academic gains, budgets, accounting, none of it. They're just using it as a platform for their own gain. Get rid of the politics, insert better money, use it as a catalyst to bring in a better pool of people, fire that corruption out of there, and make sure that there's accountability systems in the state to allow for that. And therein lies, I think, the truth. You get leaders, much like you all were saying, instead of administrators.
Boom. All right. Thank you all. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We see you. Great comments.
Yeah, we love you all, man. Thank you for joining us.
203
in the books.
We'll be coming back at you next week with another topic. So stay tuned. And with that, on behalf of the South Star Classroom, we are out.
Peace.